Hello everyone, welcome to fucking Whack Comics. I'm here with Doug Wagner, the writer of Plastic, Plush, Vinyl, and his newest book, Klik Klik Boom. Thank you so much, Doug, for joining me here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, dude. Thanks for inviting me on.
No worries at all. My first question is about Klik Klik Boom. How did you approach writing a character that communicates with Polaroids?
Yeah, dude. I mean, obviously, when you come up with a concept like that from the writer perspective, you're like, hey, man, I just dug a big hole for myself. Like I've got a main character that never says a word.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it just came down to like trying to figure out like how to manage the room in a comic because no matter what, you still only have 22 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously with Sprout, I was going to have her show a Polaroid, show the audience the Polaroid, and then have a reaction to the Polaroid. So usually, something like that you can get across in dialogue in one panel. So this one is just like trying to manage that space and then also try to come up with Polaroids that kind of like did what they were supposed to do as far as, tell a visual story without me having to explain it to everyone. So, a little bit more work than usual, but I loved it. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it worked perfectly too. I really enjoyed Klik Klik Boom. It was a great story. Something different from you as well.
Oh yeah. Thanks, man. I mean, I dabble in a lot of different stuff, not just, crazy, disturbed serial killer stuff, but this one was just like a fun, like, hey, let's do something a little different. Let's do something high action with like, like we talked about, like with a mute assassin, basically, and see where that can take us. And we enjoyed it, and I'm glad you liked it.
All the covers for that book too were spot on. Was so great.
Oh yeah, Doug Dabbs killed it on the covers. Well, he killed on the interiors too, but the covers on that book are so cool and so different. I love like, he'd be like, hey, I'm going to do something different, and every cover basically has the logo in a different spot. And I was like, oh yeah, you don't see that very often. Like that's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, he absolutely knocked him out of the park.
So with Plush, you gave us some furry cannibals. How did the furry community take that? Do you think? Have you heard anything back from them?
Oh yeah, I've got several friends that are in the furry community, and I mean, I go to the shows all the time as well. So it was I mean, obviously you always have your detractors. Like there are going to be a couple people that are upset or don't like it, but it seemed like at least my friends, they're all like, oh, this was fun. Like it was never anything in there, I don't think anyway, that was talked down to or condescending or painted furries in a bad light. It was just a story that happened to involve furries. And they're at least at all the cons I've been to, it's one of the most accepting communities that I've ever been a part of. So luckily they were pretty accepting of me writing this story about one small fantastical element that might exist in the furry community.
Yeah, it was great. I really liked that story as well. Just unexpected, with all them being furries and start killing people, and then the love story that you snuck in there too was really great. It gave the book a lot of heart as well.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I think my dark secret is almost all my books are really love stories, no matter what. They're love stories, but they involve a blow up doll or a bunch of serial killers, or cannibalistic furries. So, I mean, to me, that's what I think most people relate to is like, to me, it's not necessarily about, telling a story about furries at a furry convention, but about the hearts and souls of these people that hopefully people can relate to.
Yeah, I really loved that in Klik Klik Boom as well. I felt like a lot of the themes for that was family as well, and finding your own family, and that really hit home for me. I really liked that element of the story.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, that I kind of always aim for, like, there's a common theme amongst a lot of my works of you don't have to necessarily stay with the family that you were born into. You can kind of pick your own family if you're smart about it. And it's like sometimes those are serial killers, sometimes those are blow up dolls, sometimes those are mute assassins. It's like whatever floats your boat.
So Vinyl follows a guy that has to listen to music. How do you think music has helped you with your process to create comic books?
Yeah, I mean, music has always been had a huge influence on my life, from day one. And so I use playlists and music on a regular basis to help me, especially when I'm getting ready to step into a story. I usually start the day with, I'll have it on my phone, and I'll be like, hey, let me play a couple of songs that I think encapsulate and embrace what I'm trying to do in this story to kind of get my mind in the right mode. So, with Vinyl, it kind of made sense to me with Walter and, doing a lot of research on dementia and how they're using music to help people, kind of remember who they were and in certain events in their life. I just kind of embrace that when, okay, what kind of playlists would this like older guy have that would remind him of being a serial killer? So, to me, it was like, well, I want the most beautiful songs I could find. That was kind of like that whole like certain era of music that was just, Etta James and those that style of music that was just absolutely gorgeous to me. And I was like, yeah, that'd be kind of fun for a serial killer. Like that's what I would want to listen to. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing that watching this video, there's people that have brain damage and lost the ability to speak. They teach them to sing, and they can sing these words that they can't talk. It's really incredible the power music has in general. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and my wife makes fun of me because like most of the time, especially for like 80s songs, if I hear an 80s song, I can tell you where I heard it the first time. Maybe that's some kind of crazy dementia thing that, I'll have to deal with later on, but like that immediately pulls up a memory for me, no matter what the song is. And so, and again, doing the research was just like fascinating to see like these people who couldn't talk, who couldn't remember who they were. They started listening to a song from their youth, and they go, oh yeah, I remember Jimmy. And, you see them start having these memories all linked to music. And that was fascinating to me when I was doing the research.
Definitely. I definitely feel the same way. Like when I hear a song, it transports me back to when I first heard it or when I listened to it a lot. And it just really reminds you of a place in your life. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's really cool.
I really liked vinyl. So I'm going to say that with all of your works, really. I'm a big fan of your work, and especially this trilogy that you got going here with Daniel Hilliard. Hilliard? Is that how you say his name?
Yep, Hilliard,
He's great. Used two together as like a dream team.
Oh yeah, and dude, the reason why we got drawn in together and we've been great friends ever since is we're both like we have this very dark sense of humor, obviously, and we love horror films, but at the same time, we like when they're funny, like Evil Dead and Dale and Tucker versus Evil, and stories like that take and have fun with the horror movie at the same time as even in some of the older ones like Freddy Krueger and even some of the Jason and Michael Myers movies, like there's comedic elements in there that go, okay, yeah, this isn't, it's scary, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And so we had that same sense of humor. And so like we just kind of bond over it and love working on it together.
How did you two meet and start collaborating?
Honestly, it was years ago. Daniel sent in sample pages, and I think he sent them to 12 Gauge Comics, which is Kevin Gardner, who's a really good friend of mine. And Kevin shared them with Brian Stelfreeze, and then Brian immediately shared them with me going, hey, you need to work with this guy. And so it's kind of like this, like just blind luck, which is how I find most artists I work with, just blind luck of like, he sent in sample pages that made their way to me completely by accident. And, I was like, hey, let's start working together. And we became close friends. And he's like my younger brother, it's like we've been friends ever since.
That's great. I really hope you've got another book in the works with him, because I'd love to see more from you two together.
Oh yeah, Daniel and I plan on. We joke about it because like we every now and then when we get finished with the book, we'll like test each other to say, hey, are you planning on moving on? And we're like, hey, as long as you work with me, I'll work with you. Like we never want that to stop because honestly, it's a very enjoyable experience. It's like egos are put aside. It's always about the story. He's always got a good heart. So I know when he's giving me criticism, I know where it's coming from. So it's just, a beautiful like collaboration to be a part of. So, I hope we keep working for as long as, as we're both alive kind of thing.
That's great. It really is something special when you find that perfect collaborative partner and you can just gel together and get everything out and, just being able to bounce off each other and improve each other's work, and it's amazing.
Oh yeah, 100% agree with you on that one.
You got to be lucky too, because not everyone gets to find that collaborative partner, and so it's great.
I bumped into the opposite, and you're right. It's miserable when it's the other way around. When you're constantly bumping heads, or you're just not agreeing on stuff. Like it makes you question whether everything you're doing and whether you want to do it anymore, kind of stuff. So yeah, the opposite is horrible, and it's I've just been lucky to find somebody like Daniel.
Onto Plastic now. Plastic has possibly one of the most disturbing love stories, showing the lengths a man will go through for his blow-up doll. What made you want to revolve the story around his blow up doll? Where did
Um,
that come from?
yeah, I mean, honestly, the story originated from me like driving. I was doing a cross country trip with a couple of friends, and we went through. We're crossing the state line into Virginia, and the sign there and says like every other state where it says "Welcome to Utah" or "Welcome to California," it said "Buckle up, Virginia," which if you've read Plastic, you know is the
Yeah.
last line. You know, so
Yeah.
like the whole idea started hitting me. You know, of like, man, what would who? Why would somebody say something like that? And you know, where would that drive it? And then the more I got into it, I realized, oh, it can't be a real person. And and, and it started getting me into this feeling like I think everybody can relate to. They have something in their life. It can be their wife or their child or their cat or their favorite toy, you know, kind of thing that everybody has something that like if you took it from them, they would probably burn the world down to get it back. You know, like and so that you know, I was trying to tap into that feeling of like, yes, we all have something that's just true, pure love, no matter how ridiculous it may seem. You know, and so like I just wanted to kind of play into that.
It was so well done too. I really, really loved it. I remember that Plastic was the first thing that I read from you, and I remember people talking about it a lot. And I was like, all right, I'll pick up the trade and see how I go with it. And I picked up the trade, and I read it all in one sitting, and I was just like, this is one of the best things I've ever read, and it was just so original as well, you know. And it could have gone completely the opposite way, you know, with that kind of story, but you really pulled it off. You and Daniel really pulled it off.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it was one of those weird ones too. Like when we first started doing it, there were several friends of both of ours that were like, "We're not sure you should do this because of course you can like you can not stick that landing, right?" And so we were just like, "Hey, we're going to do this no matter what. And we're going to do exactly what we think we would want to read and have fun doing it." And luckily, it turned out positive versus negative. It's like you said, you could have gone in a totally different direction there, and you would have never heard from us again.
So, Plastic, Vinyl, and Plush all have a bit of a twist on a classic serial killer type trope, you know, in stories. How do you come up with the twist that makes your comics so original?
Man, that's I mean, you know, I have to give a lot of that credit to the muses because, you know, when you're sitting down and you're typing stuff, I really appreciate unique and different stories. And so that's what I kind of try to write something that I think I would be attracted to. And a lot of that's like, I don't want the usual stuff. You know, I like the familiar mixed with the unique. And so that's what we're always trying to aim for. And a lot of that, you know, goes with Daniel as well. Like we're bouncing stuff back and forth, and he'll go, "Oh, well, you know, that's not the direction I think we should go. Like, what if we did it this way?" So, you know, it's a very true collaborative effort. And you know, I don't think it'd be anywhere near as good without Daniel by my side on this because it's somebody that I trust to bounce stuff back and forth on. And honestly, it's just, you know, just like finding an artist, you know, when you write a good story, there's a lot of luck involved in that too. And so it's like, hey, I want to do it this way, and you hope somebody else likes it.
Can you please run us through your writing process?
Oh yeah, I'm very much a slow writer, and you know, especially in comics, you know, where there's a lot of comic guys that are running around writing 6 comics a month and doing a good job at it. There's no way I could do that. I'm like at most maybe an issue a week, and so I start off very methodically. Where like I'll actually write a log line or just say a paragraph of the idea, and then I'll throw that to the artist. You know, whether that's Doug Dabbs like on Klik Klik Boom or Daniel on any of our books, and get their feedback. And then I take that feedback and I write like a, you know, 5 to 10 to 15 page summary of the entire story, scene by scene. Again, give that to them, get their feedback, see what they think, you know, work through some things if there's any issues or notes. And then that's when I start going like, okay, now let me break this down page by page and then panel by panel. And then I write the script. So you can tell like I have maybe too many steps in my process, but that's what works best for me. So, you know, and probably why I'm so slow, but like I like it to be like, I like to make sure I'm bouncing off somebody, not just handing you know, a finished script and going, hey, go. You know, it's more like, hey, what do you want to draw? What kind of things work best for you? What are your strengths? And so it's, you know, like I said, I'm a little methodical on that, but that's the process I enjoy.
It sounds like a really collaborative project when you do it that way as well. Do you usually have your artist in mind or attached to the book before you start writing it so you can do that back and forth?
Not necessarily the initial idea, because you know I have like a list of ideas, you know, in notebooks and everywhere else you can imagine. And then like because I didn't have Daniel initially picked for plastic. And so like, I threw him like 3 or 4 ideas and he's like, hey, I want to do plastic. And then it's like kind of molding that story once you find somebody like that that wants to do it. And he was super excited about it too, which made me want to do it even more. And you kind of start molding the story a little bit more to take advantage of what they're best at, because you don't want to write, like if you're like, hey, Daniel's horrible at drawing clowns, you don't write clowns in it. So like, it's just kind of finding that like happy space where both of us are kind of leaning into our strengths.
That's right. What's appealing about writing miniseries instead of ongoing series or maxi series?
I think, I mean, not, obviously I haven't done an ongoing yet. And there's some appeal there, but at the same time, I do like a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. And so like, as you probably noticed, like with most of my stuff, the trades are a self-contained story. You don't have to read Plush to understand plastic or vinyl, even though they're in the same universe. Obviously we put Easter eggs in there, but like, it's not one of those things where you have to read one to understand the other. And I like that. I want something where I don't have to read, and I know this might be blasphemy in the comic industry, but like, I don't want to have to read, 6 different titles to understand one. I want to be able to sit down and just enjoy the trade for that story. And so since I kind of enjoy that myself, that's kind of like what I enjoy writing.
I'm with you there. I do like a bit of both. I do enjoy sitting down and having a trade to read and you got the story done. But I also do enjoy some longer runs. I'll definitely be keen to see a longer run from you at some point in your future.
Oh yeah, we'll see. I mean, you hope so. I wouldn't mind giving it a shot.
Why plush when everyone knows that after plastic and vinyl, it was meant to be latex?
Because it was supposed to. Because Daniel and I are weird, and we didn't want to do what was obviously the next answer. Um, and honestly, that's the truth. Like when we were sitting down, we were like plastic, vinyl, plush, or leather. Pleather. You could do some other. But like we were like, we don't want it to be the obvious like next step because we don't like doing the obvious. And so like, we were kind of kicking it around. I was like, what about plush? Totally different. We'll go with somebody who's more like on the cannibalistic side, and definitely, I mean, we got Rico to color it, who does neon colors. So we're like, yeah, let's do more neon horror this time. And so that's honestly, it was because it wasn't the next logical step.
I really did enjoy the change of colors upon plush as well. Those neon colors really popped on that book.
Oh yeah, Rico's amazing. I've been friends with him for a long time, and we've never really had the chance to work together. So it was really great to be able to call him up and go, "Hey, are you free?" And he managed to be free. And I was like, "Yeah, dude, we just want you to do your thing. Like, we wanted neon, we wanted as bright as possible, even though it's a horror story. Like, lean into that." And he delivered in spades there. Like, he did amazing.
So I know Klik Klik Boom is just wrapped up, but are you working on your next title?
Oh yeah, yep. Working on Doug Dabbs and I are working on our next book, and Daniel and Hilliard and I just finished up a book. I'm not allowed to talk about anything, of course, but we've already started. Daniel and I've just finished one and are already starting the next one.
Could you tease maybe a release date or when you can talk about it?
Well, comics is really weird right now. I think you and I were kind of emailing back and forth about like the industry's in a bit of a struggle at the moment. So I think I know with Daniel and I's book, like it's kind of been like we're like, hey, let's hold off a little bit and see how things adjust and what's happening before we necessarily come up with an exact release date. We're hoping for next summer, so that would be ideal.
Yeah, that's a fair while to sit on a completed work, though, right?
Oh yeah, you get the itch. It's like it does bother you, but at the same time, I mean, it's just it's part of the process. Daniel and I don't like to release a book unless it's completely done. So we don't even solicit issue 1 until Daniel's done with all 5 issues or 6 issues, just because we want to make sure that no matter what, those books are coming out on time, because that's important to us. So, like say if he got sick or, one of us God forbid, got hurt or something, that, he hurts his drawing hand or something. And, I think fans would be understanding, but at the same time, like if there's like a 6-month wait, people are, they're going to lose interest and probably give us a hard time online.
Yeah, that is a good way to approach it, because there has been a lot of times where you're waiting 6 months to a year for the next issue, and you're just like, what's going on over there? But it's good that you think of the audience like that, and to have the whole run come out and without any breaks. It sounds like, yeah, you're really thinking of your audience.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm one of those people that hates when a book's delayed for months, and then because like it never fails, right? You get the next book and you start reading it, and you're like, I don't remember what happened. Like,
Yeah.
I go back and read the other issues to catch up. And so, me being a fan as well, like I was like, I don't like when that happens. So let's make sure that, and Daniels feels the same way. Let's make sure we don't do that to the people that want to read our books.
How did you break into writing comic books?
Oh, dude, that's a long and horrible story. My initial break in was back when Malibu Comics was around, which was back in like mid '90s, and I got a chance to do Ultra Force. Had signed on to do several other episodes of Ultra Force, as well as my own creator-owned book. And then, as everybody knows, Marvel bought them, and then a couple of months later closed them down. So everything I'd been working on was gone.
Oh,
Um,
dang.
yeah, that was it devastated me for a couple of years. After that, I like send a lot of rejection letters. So I constantly sent in pitches for different things to every company that would let me send them something. And back in those days, it was through the mail. And then probably about 2000, what was it, 2003, 2004, Kevin Gardner, who's the president of 12 Gauge, he and I were just sitting in the living room watching TV, talking. And as everybody does, we were armchair quarterbacking, Marvel and DC, and that, what if we were in charge? And we've been doing that for years. And I can't remember which one of us said it, but one of us just went, it's time for one of us to put up or shut up. And we decided to start 12 Gauge Comics together. And, and initially just started, putting together the ride, because I'd made friends throughout the industry over the years. So we had, a murderer's row of artists in that book: Brian Stelfreeze and Cully Hamner and Adam Hughes and Jason Pearson and Georges Genti and Dexter Vines, so like you had this great cast of, artists that are willing to do your book with you. And luckily Image jumped on it, and that kind of like got the whole train started of me being a comic book writer.
Nice. That sounds great, man. I'm as disheartening as it would have been with everything getting cancelled with Malibu. I'm glad that you kept on pushing through and got to the industry eventually, because I really enjoy your work, and yeah, it's a real treat.
Well, thanks. Dude, it's one of those things, everybody's got a bug, and writing comics is my bug, so like, it's one of those things where like I would try to walk away, and then 3 months later I'm sitting down writing a comic book. So like it's just one of those things where like it's just something that I can't let go of, and I'm just so hard-headed that I just I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I always give to young creatives, like, hey, how do I break into comics? And I'm like, make comics. Let the rest of it work itself out, but don't wait to get permission or validation from a publisher. Just start making comics. And that's what we did. That's what got my whole career kind of restarted.
That's awesome, man. It really is. Why did you choose to write comics instead of like novels or screenplays or anything like that?
I hate to use the word calling, but like there's a lot to that. Like I grew up reading comics, that what helped me learn to read and got me into reading. And at 17, I was consumed with comic books, and I was like, hey, I want to write comic books for a living. And as much as I love all the other mediums out there and media out there, like comics was just my thing. I loved it. I studied it. I tried to figure out how they did it. And the cross, that perfect mix of visual medium and dialogue as well that you have to read. I think I was always enamored and obsessed with it. So like it just became my calling.
I suppose this goes into the next question really well. This is a question that I like to ask every creator that I interview: is what does the comic book medium mean to you?
Oh man, the comic book medium is so important in my life. So like I said, I was definitely like a slow learner, bottom of the class kind of thing for almost all my life. And if it wasn't for me, walking into a store and finding something, I think I started out with the Flintstones and Casper, comics back in the day. And, I decided to teach, to learn how to read, because I wanted to figure out what was going on in these. And then bumped into superhero comics when I was a kid, and I was like, oh my God. And that was just like, something like, obviously now you can see all that stuff on TV, but there was nothing like that in the world. And so then I just became enamored. And then my dad passed when I was like 14. And to be honest, like if it wasn't for Uncanny X-Men, I probably wouldn't be here. So for me, comics kind of saved my life in a multiple of ways. And I mean, it's just an important medium to me, and like forever and ever, comics. I will love comics.
That's a beautiful answer right there. Oh my God. That was very touching. I think, we're all in this together, there's I love the internet for being able to bring us together, as comic book nerds and stuff. Because where I live in Brisbane, I maybe know, I think, two people in real life that read comic books, and we weren't always reading the same comic books, so I couldn't talk to them about it. But thanks to the internet, it's opened up a whole world to a bunch of people that I can just be like, I finish a book and I know that they're reading it, and I can message them straight away, and we can talk for hours on it, and it's yeah, it's just an amazing medium. I'm really glad to just be talking about it. I'd love to be in it one day as well, to draw some books. I've had One Piece published in a book with just a little pin up in the back of the indie comic book here in Brisbane. But yeah, it really is a dream for a lot of people, right?
Oh yeah, and I mean, and again, I give you the same advice I give the writers as well. Like, dude, just making comics. Whether you do it online for free or whatever that is, because I think you can over prepare for an industry, for a job, for your dream job, and you spend too much time preparing versus like doing it and sending it out and getting people to see it. And that's the key. Is like you will learn so much doing it versus reading about it, or like just go out and do it and share it with people and see what happens. And I think you'll find, like, I mean, I'm not an artist, so it's a lot harder for me to like give specific advice when I see art. But like, there's comics that, like, they have stick figures in them, and there was one that I can't remember the exact name of it, but it did Kickstarter, made over $1 million.
Oh wow.
And so it's, I think people are like, oh, I don't draw as good as Jim Lee yet. Don't worry about that. Like, just draw and put your comic out.
You said before that you have a real love for Uncanny X-Men and superhero books in general. Do you have any desire to want to work for Marvel or DC on some superhero books, or even create your own superhero book?
I would, yes, absolutely. I mean, I still love superheroes to this day, and will always have a huge impact on my life. Um, I know with the stuff that I write, especially when you look at plastic, vinyl, and plush, I've talked to editors and they're like, we don't know what to do with that. We can't put you on Wolverine because we're scared what you're going to do. And I'm like, I completely understand and agree with you there. But like, yeah, would I obviously love to? I mean, obviously, Uncanny will always be my number one love, and for comics. And would I love a chance at the X-Men, even if it was just a mini series? Absolutely. And maybe I'll get lucky one day and be able to do that. I got to work for DC Custom, which a lot of people don't know about, but like, they do all the stuff that you see. Like, if you see a cereal box with comics on it, or you see something online that's based on a TV show, I worked for that for about 10 years. So I was lucky enough there to where I got to do like Superman and Batman and the Justice League, and like a lot of the major characters without having to do the regular book. So like, obviously they're not going to just hand, especially back then, Doug Wagner, Batman, and go, hey, we're going to give you this for the next, year. So, I mean, luckily I got to touch them, and I just recently got to do a Marvel, zombies, blood, or black, white, and blood.
Yeah, yeah.
And they let me do some of the X-Force characters. So I was like, oh yes, I was like, this is, one of my dream, kind of gigs. It's zombies, but hey, at least it's the characters I love. So,
That's amazing. I hope that opens the door for more work for you at Marvel there. I got my fingers crossed that you end up on an X-Men title one day. I'll definitely be there picking it up.
thank you.
All right, so now we're getting to the writing game show.
Uh-oh.
I've got 5 questions for you. They're all pretty easy, just fun, silly questions. Have as much fun with them as you possibly can.
Okay.
The first question I ask everyone, it's a bit of a challenge. Can you please write a sentence without using A or E in any of the words?
So you can't use it even in a word?
Not in a word, no.
Not in the words? I have to write a sentence without using A and E? Yeah, that is a tough one. Hold on. I'm gonna have to get paper out for this.
Go for it.
So no E's or A's.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, like, are there words that exist without E's and A's in them?
There is.
Okay, hold on. Let me double check. How about, dude? This, like you put me on the spot, so you get what you get from Doug Wagner, right? Like his hips touch King Kong's foot.
Perfect. His hips. Well,
His hips touch King Kong's foot.
I think that's probably the best answer that I've had from that question yet.
Okay.
The second question is also a bit of a mainstay. Boom Studios wants you to write a comic book with Keanu Reeves, but the only idea he has is a guy going berserk in a field. How would you stretch that idea out to get to 12 issues?
Oh man, that's mean. That's I mean, honestly, like if you could get Keanu Reeves involved in a book, it's clearly going to do well. So,
It'll sell well, maybe, but
yeah,
maybe won't read well.
yeah, exactly. You bring in Keanu and you're like, hey, we need to stretch this. I mean, I'm not sure if they didn't just do this, but like there would be some of the longest action scenes you ever saw in your life, especially like he's immortal in that, right? Like he can't die.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're like, yeah, you could have like endless, like you do 2 or 3 issue fight scenes, of like him getting killed but not killed, So like, yeah, that could be, that could be fun, but yeah, stretching it out would be a monster. Especially what I write, right? Like I've never done over 6 issues. So you're like, hey, I'm like, oh God, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
So just some longer fight scenes, say,
Yeah,
take it
yes,
up.
longer fight scenes is the obvious answer.
Perfect. That's perfect. I reckon that probably would even be better than the one that Matt Kent put together with Keanu. Maybe.
Maybe.
Next question is, can you please give us a compelling backstory to a blue wig found on the ground outside of a comic book convention?
A blue wig found out outside of a comic book convention. So, and what was the first part of it again? A compelling story?
Yeah, a compelling backstory.
A compelling backstory. So I'd start out with the wig's been there for 3 months, so it has nothing to do with the comic book convention, but somebody finds it when they're there, right? And so this blue wig is from, I mean, the obvious, to me, the obvious one is like it's either a serial killer or a spy or both, so that's what we'll go with. It's a serial killing spy. And it was a dude dressed up as a female and wearing a blue wig. And they dropped it there. And inside the wig is the key fob that holds the secret to stopping World War III. That's
perfect right there. That needs to be your next book with Daniel right there. I'll take a little bit of credit. That's fine. You're doing amazing with these questions. Only 2 more to go.
Okay.
So you said earlier that all this trilogy here is set in the same world. So the characters from Plastic, Vinyl, and Plush all meet each other in a big Infinity War style crossover. What's the story?
Oh, I don't know if I should tell you because I've actually written it.
You have?
I have. I don't know, when Daniel and I talked about like when it would, when would be the next one, but basically it's a, because those aren't actually in chronological order the way they came out. So in this one, like I'll just give you the basics, like, using the Plush characters as the main ones, so like they've been married, they have 3 kids, they go on a date night, and the kids love having Virginia as their babysitter. Everything goes to hell, so they go get a friend, which of course would be Walter and his gang.
That's amazing. That's actually happening.
Yeah.
That's
the plan anyway. That's what I came up with.
Oh my God, I am so excited for that. That sounds like it's going to be so much fun.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
so glad I asked that question. We got a little bit of a tease. That's amazing.
Yep.
So the last question here for the writing game show is: the furries from Plush write a cannibal cookbook. Can you please name 3 recipes that would be in the book?
A cannibal cookbook, and they got 3 recipes. Okay, so I mean, now I'm not any good at cooking, so we have to establish that right out of the gate. The first one is, we have to do some kind of kidney pie, right? So like but I want it to be sweet, not savory. So,
We have the savory pies over here in
oh
Australia.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going sweet with this one because kidney shouldn't be sweet. So like mix in some, some. I think we're going huckleberry kidney pie, right? So there's one. Um, we're going with a bicep burrito, and ooh, what else can we do? Um, we're gonna have an all meat kebab, and there's an eye on each end. that's, those are the recipes.
That's perfect. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Doug, for entertaining me with those silly questions in the writing game show.
No, I love
Really
it.
appreciate
Yeah, thank you for bringing those up. Those were fun.
it. Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it too, man. Absolutely nailed it.
Thanks.
If people want to find you on social media and keep up with your work, where can they find you?
I'm on most of the social medias. I got my little card here, like on Facebook and on Instagram, it's Doug.Wagner13. And then on Twitter, it's Doug_Wagner. And obviously, I've got a big head that's pretty easy to recognize. So my picture's on almost all that stuff. So it's pretty easy to find me. And I almost always answer, direct messages and those kind of things. So everybody should always feel free to reach out for whatever.
Awesome. And apart from everyone's local comic book store, where could they find your work?
Well, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be with Image, so you can find it on Amazon pretty easy. Most book chains can order it fairly easy as well, no matter what country you're in. Obviously, there's languages. You have to. Australia doesn't have to worry about that the English translation. Well, maybe I do speak. So
yeah, I think
it's like,
yeah, they just add a few more swear words for the
exactly. But yeah, I mean, usually at any bookstore chain or Amazon is pretty easy to get.
Perfect. There you go. If you haven't picked up Klik Klik Boom, Doug's latest work, pick it up. All three of these books behind me: Plush, Vinyl, Plastic. You got to pick them all up so you can be on board for the big crossover that's coming. I'm so excited for that, Doug. You have no idea. Let's get out of here. Thanks everyone for watching, and thank you so much, Doug, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on, dude.